Hi there, welcome to Hey Sound Guy, the podcast where I'll be peeking behind the curtains of the wonderful world of music. Each week I'll be speaking to sound engineers, music industry professionals, and musicians, and we'll get to know them a little bit better and share some fun stories from the road. My next guest is one of my favorite guitarists of all time. When it comes to feel and style, he's got it all. I met him when he was playing at Ronnie Scott's. Well, he still does, not right now, but he still plays at Ronnie Scott's regularly. And yeah, he's just an incredible musician and one of the nicest people you'll ever get to meet. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend, Nigel Price.
It's wonderful to be here virtually.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Well, you know, I mean, I'm a bit busy at the moment, but I've just about managed to shoehorn you into my busy schedule.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You also extend your gratitude to your people who set it up. You know, I know they're all well, publicists and agents and all these things. You know,
that's right. It's a great team. I mean, like a machine. You know.
Yeah, great. It's like the left hand and the right hand working together.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Right. So you've learned to swap hands without missing a stroke.
Oh God, it's awful, isn't it? Well, yes.
Okay.
So,
tell me, how I usually start these things is if you can introduce yourself and tell us what you do, and yeah.
Okay. Well, my name's Nigel Price, and at the moment, I just sort of move from day to day with absolutely no schedule, no ambition, and just wait until nightfall so I can drink heavily. But when lockdown finishes, I hope to continue my career as a jazz guitar player.
And a great jazz guitar player, one of my favorites in the entire world.
Well, that's very nice of you. Thank you.
Well, I mean, it's not the passion and the that you bring to the guitar playing is incredible, and just to watch you play is every time it's awe inspiring. I really enjoy and have enjoyed working with you. You know, we've always had a good rapport, so it's always a pleasure.
Oh man, I'm going to get emotional.
No, we can have a little cry. I think it's allowed. Yeah,
it's strange to see you in the light. You know, because usually you're like behind a sound desk. I can just about see, a pair of eyes or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's where I belong. You know, in the dark, in the corner somewhere. Yeah. So you are, as I said before, one of the greatest that and I'm very fortunate to know you personally. And we've known each other for a good number of years, maybe about 10 or 11 years, something like that. I mean, I've been at Ronnie's 12 years now, and you've kind of been playing there the whole time.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it really is that long, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm surprised they're not sick of me by now.
Well, I don't think that they're gonna get sick of quality musicians anytime soon, being that it's a music venue.
Sorry,
okay.
All right.
We're back.
Good. Sorry.
That's okay. Yes. Don't be sorry. It's all good. Tell me, Nigel, when did you decide to go into making a career of guitar playing? What was it that was the initial thing that got you to play guitar?
Oh, you really want to know that? Well, it was more of a sociable thing than anything else. There was a guy at school who'd got a drum kit for Christmas, and we thought, what a great idea! Let's get a band together. So everyone just picked an instrument, right. And someone picked keyboard, someone picked bass, someone had a harmonica. So and I just said, well, I'll play guitar then. So right. It wasn't that I particularly wanted guitar. It's just that was one of the roles that was left. So I just did it. I didn't really think about it. Just got straight into it.
Happy accident.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, but it was more about being with the people and making music with people. that was more important to me than playing the guitar. I guess you can get your kicks out of any instrument, really. It just happened to be that for me.
Yeah, 100%. There is something in playing with other people, as opposed to just playing with yourself. It's there's an energy and just positivity that comes from it. Obviously, there are people who have had bands and don't like each other anymore. And the list is endless. But the something a bit like you said, it's a social thing. And it's meant to be a positive and creative outlet, which I think is, it's 100 million thousand times whatever. It's better than especially as a teenager or as a young person, rather than spending your time in a destructive or self-destructive way. If you do something like music, I think all art really, if you can express yourself and get that creativity out, is a good thing, and it's a positive thing, and it enriches your life and also those around you.
I think I was quite lucky to grow up in the time that I did. I mean, we're talking about 1980, 1981 and 1982 when I started playing the guitar. And it seemed to be a very creative time. There were loads of bands around, loads of musicians. There was no internet, to get distracted by. And people were seeking out little nuggets of information and talking to each other about music. And it almost feels like these days you could probably do it on your own, just like watching YouTube videos, and suddenly emerge from the cocoon of your house as a fully formed butterfly. But that's just never the way it was. When I was growing up, it was all about being around people.
No, it's definitely like you say. And I think those were the glory days, the 80s and the 90s, right? I was chatting with my housemate the other day, and I think it was a Soundgarden song on the radio, and he's like, "Oh man, I miss the 90s." And I'm like, "Yeah, those were good times." Even though I was quite young in the 90s. But yeah, it seems like those were the glory days, right on the sort of cusp before the internet started kicking off and before all these sorts of things. Yeah. Like you said, it was a very social thing. You had to go out and speak to people to find the information. You had to, it was a physical act as well as a mental act. Yeah. To go out and find the things. And also, sift through all the bullshit that people talk sometimes to find out what's real.
I think it was partly so sociable because we didn't have mobile phones either.
Yeah.
So you literally had to get your information from other people. Everyone would be ringing around on their home phones or just meeting each other wherever. And so you'd all hear, like almost by word of mouth, about the Battle of the Bands competition going on at the local youth centre or whatever, and everybody was there, just everybody, because there was nothing else to do, really.
That's true, yeah.
It was, I miss it. I do miss it. It's easy to be quite lonely in today's world.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Now that we're so connected, it feels like we're more alone than before, because it's like you said, you can get everything that you could have gotten back then, but now you can do it from home. And that's a very sort of isolating thing, isn't it?
Well, right now, especially.
Yeah. Well, now we don't have a choice. It's kind of it's what's being told, what we're being told to do, and we have to kind of follow suit. For the reasons that are obvious, to try and flatten the curve. And tell me, where are you from? Which town did you grow up in?
Well, I was born in Molesey in Surrey, but I was too young. That's out near Hampton Court. We moved away from there when I was too young to remember. Moved over to Kingston, and then my first real memories of being a human being were over in sort of Croydon way.
Oh right.
And then moved over to Epsom when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
And in 1978, I guess, and I'm still here.
Still in Epsom, still enjoying it.
It's so good here in Epsom that I just can't prize myself away.
No, that's good, man. That's great.
Well, I was one of those people. I had itchy feet like very very early on, and I was the first one to leave. I went and joined the army in 86, 86 I think it was. And I was gone. I was like, bye Epsom, bye. And then actually it turns out that I'm probably one of the last ones remaining here out of all my friends.
Right. So maybe your time away brought the love, into your heart for Epsom.
Well,
where you are.
It was partly that. It was partly meeting a very pretty young girl here, and raising a family. And of course, once you sort of put those sort of roots down, it's quite a move about. But also, it's close enough to London to commute for all those gigs that I used to do in the old days.
Yeah. But you're quite busy. You're all over the country, man. I see your schedule up until now was very, very busy. You'd play in the north and the south and the east and the west and all over the place. It's you're quite a proper working musician.
Yeah, I believe in that. I mean, maybe it's an army thing, but I believe in boots on the ground. It's there's only a certain amount you can do with this newfangled internet thing, and sometimes you just got to get in the car, put your guitar in the car and your amp, and get with your mates together and just do the miles, go out and play, go and play Scotland and Wales and Cornwall and East Anglia, just everywhere. You have to do it, and I think it's the only real way that you can expect to have any longevity as a musician.
100%.
I think there's a huge there's a huge pool of musicians that are not fighting over gigs in London, but there's only a finite amount of work in London.
Yeah.
So, and I don't treat London any differently than I do any other town in the UK. When it comes to playing there with my band, I'll just play there, a couple of times a year.
That's it.
Except for Ronnie Scott's, of course. Which is, when you do the late shows down there, it's a little bit off the, I don't want to say off the radar, but it's not like a regular show. It doesn't seem to sort of get in the way of anything else that you want to book in town.
It's like an entity to its own, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's like a little vortex of time where you're just like, here we are, and this is what this is going to be. Yeah. I think that's
great.
A great thing that they've started doing. As you said, you can do another gig before, so you can go and do your day job, and then go and have some fun and let off some steam, and get to play with new people, young talent, of which there's quite a lot of. I see some of the young guys coming up, and it's great to see, the level of musicianship, and the majority of them bring also a sense of professionalism to the job, which it's great to see and to experience and be part of that. So I think that's really good thing.
I think it's tough. It's quite tough for young musicians, and there's a certain percentage of them. They want it so badly that they're prepared to work harder than maybe I ever did. And they're really going out and getting it. And some of these young musicians are absolutely phenomenal. So it's I think the future's bright, just as long as we can keep our liberty after all this business.
That is a scary thing, man. That is something that's been on my mind quite a lot, as those restrictions seem to be getting tighter and tighter, and there's, talks about all sorts of, or threats of martial law and all these sorts of things. It's a seriously scary thought.
Well, it's hard to know what to believe right now, isn't it? It's I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks from now, then maybe it's just not going to be as bad as we imagined it might be. Maybe, or it might be worse, of course. But I've always been an optimist. So
yeah, and and even if we will just have to adjust accordingly, and whatever that adjustment is or how we can adjust to it is kind of up to us and up to the situation, or shall I say, I don't want to say restrictions, but yeah, what situation we've been placed in and how we deal with that. Obviously we're gonna tailor our response to whatever is being given to us, because we're not the ones who's making the rules. They're the ones that are making the rules, and we have to decide whether we're gonna follow it or not.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. It's just a shame, the business that we're in is probably going to be the last one to come back.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, first out, last in. It's it is kind of worrying, and I do think about that. Obviously being self-employed as yourself. If we don't work, we don't get money. There's no furlough for us, and there's nothing. Maybe the government will help us out in June, but fucking hell, people have got to eat until then. So I mean, I have kind of been considering other avenues of employment in the meantime. But we'll see. I'm going to take this week and have a little look, see what is out there. I've
been having a look myself and realizing that all I'm qualified for is either security work because of my time in the army, or a delivery driver.
Right.
It just seems a bit bad, doesn't it? It's like, okay, when you sort of remove yourself from that whole musician thing, a kind of sphere, which I guess I have a degree of notoriety in, and then realizing that if you were to leave that behind, well, if I were to leave that behind, I'd have virtually nothing.
You start from scratch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's pretty terrifying. So I've personally been working on getting an online teaching thing together, which is, I mean, the world and his dog are all doing that at the moment, and it's
it.
I don't know what option there is really. I'm just going to give it a whirl.
Yeah, why not, man? And something that I've always kind of said, £60 a day is better than no pounds a day. It doesn't matter. If you are able to scrape something in, to get something together, it's better than doing nothing. And also the sense of accomplishment, within yourself for having been adaptable, for having been able to get something back, to put your time in and get positive returns. I think that the self-satisfaction, that the little pat on your own back, I think that's worth quite a lot, especially in these times where people are isolated, and obviously depression and anxiety and things like that is a real thing, more now for everyone else than it normally is, because there's no other distractions, there's nothing else you can do, and we're all in the same boat where we are freelancers, and we went from having a reasonably good life, earning enough money to sustain ourselves, to having no work and no income, and to be able to adapt yourself to then create something new. I think the satisfaction, personally, the personal victory that you get from that it's you can't find that anywhere else.
Well, I haven't actually managed to get to that point yet, because I'm so terrified that it's not good enough that I keep doing more and more and more of it. And it's on this. You ever heard of this Patreon site?
Yes, I'm on Patreon.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right, fine. So you know exactly what the score is. So I just keep thinking that there's not enough on there, that I need to put more. So I've been doing album reviews and stuff like that, and I'm just waiting for the point that I'm finally going to say, "Oh, right, it's ready." So that should be within the next week. But it's been quite quite a lonely road actually for the last sort of 3 weeks, just having a camera in front of me, just talking into it, and just imagining talking to people. It's quite surreal actually.
Yeah, it is something that you have to get used to. I mean, for me, I enjoy doing this thing because it's a two-way thing. It's a conversation that we're having. I can imagine that it must be difficult to do it on your own, and then imagine having. I mean, I never really imagined people watching this. I imagine, I just concentrate on the conversation that we're having right now. It's I can see how that's a difficult thing to get into, especially if it's not something that you've done before. And you're a very social person. You're a very outgoing person, and you feed off, as any musician, I suppose, feed off the energy that you get back from performing in front of other people.
True. That's true, and I think people like me have they probably found this a bit harder. This whole these limits on the lockdown. It's been that's been the hardest thing. I actually thought about it last night when I do the same walk every night with a dog.
Okay.
I just walk up to the end of the road, up to the main road, just turn around and walk back again. I've done it so many times now that the dog actually doesn't even bother coming with me. He knows I'm coming back, so he just waits. But as I was walking back last night, there was a woman walking the other way. A woman and a husband, and she said, "No, is he with you?" I said, "Yeah," and I explained what the situation was, and I suddenly realised that even that little bit of conversation was the first time I'd actually spoken to someone that's not in my family for a month, maybe. And it made me realise that I love people. I love being around people, and it's I am finding it quite hard, I've got to say.
Yeah. What are you doing to look after yourself in this sort of regard?
What you mean mentally?
Yeah, mentally
or physically.
Well, I mean, the physical thing, like you said, you go for a walk. I find, because myself as well, I suffer from this quite badly, and I've found that I've got plenty of hobbies, so I find that these things are a good distraction, and it's also like a sort of a positive reinforcement of who I am and my abilities. Things that I just silly things, knocking together a greenhouse yesterday out of pallets.
Oh, okay.
And making furniture for my daughter out of bits of wood that I've got. The archery that I do, exercise and things like that. I find that really helps to.
That was I was thinking at first when you started that I was thinking he's been a bit cagey. Hobbies, I thought Xbox, whatever. I didn't realise you were so creative.
Well, I try to be, and I find that to be positive reinforcement. Like I said, since I look at it as trying to get out of my head a little bit. I see all these things as a kind of a form of meditation, where you have to concentrate on something else. Like when you do yoga, it's putting yourself in a difficult position, a difficult pose, and then holding that pose and controlling your breathing, focusing on that moment there. And the same, I think, probably the thing that helps the most to clear the mind is the archery. Because you have to focus, you have to control your breathing, you have to focus on the target, and then releasing it. And there's that focus that doesn't allow you to be worrying or thinking about anything else. So it's kind of like a physical meditation. And exercise, like I said,
I used to do archery.
Hey,
I used to do archery myself.
All right.
I remember the very first shot I took was the guy was explaining to me about how to hold it and how to aim and all that sort of thing. I let this thing go, and it was like Robin Hood, right in the middle. I mean,
fantastic.
Like right in the middle.
First shot.
Yeah. And he said that was great. He said, "You'll never do that again." And you know what? He was right. I never got it in the middle ever again.
You just had that intuition, and then you started thinking about it, and you fucked it up.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you must know about the history of the English with archery. You know?
Oh, yeah. I read about it quite a lot. There's a really good series of books. Do you know the author Bernard Cornwell?
Oh, no, I'm not a massive reader, I have to say. But I don't.
Did you ever watch the Sharp series with Sean Bean?
I was aware of it. I don't really watch TV either.
No. I mean, it's just he's the author that did that, right? He wrote those Sharp books. He wrote. There's a new series on Netflix called The Last Kingdom, and that's about the time of Alfred the Great Danish invasion of England. Was it 792? They landed in Lindisfarne. Anyway, but he wrote also a series of books around the time of Agincourt, right. When the English proper, triumphed over the French in this 100-year war or whatever it was. And in there, it was compulsory for every man and boy over 4 or 5 to practice every Sunday with a longbow.
And you know that when the French used, if the French captured an English archer, they used to cut the fingers off.
Cut the fingers off.
Why we do that? Say, look, I've still got my archery fingers.
That's correct. Yeah. It's incredible, man. It's I just, since I started in the archery, I've just sort of fully immersed myself, and I'm kind of a hands-on type of person where. I got because I've got a compound bow, so it's not a regular recurve bow or something. So there's a few more sort of mechanical bits that you have to add to and adjust. And so I've kind of taken to that, full immersion. And, I do all that stuff myself, and I kind of learn by making little mistakes, separating the string and tying the peep sight and making sure that the knots are correct and all these sorts of things. So I find that it's a nice little hobby.
Absolutely. Well, I don't really have any. I mean, this is the weird thing. Is I just play guitar. I mean, that's all I do. And at points in my life, it's been a hobby. But actually, when you get into the nuances of it, some of it is work, and some of it is actually just a hobby. Yeah. And there's so many aspects to the playing, and having a real relationship with your practice. I mean, if I don't practice for a good amount of time in a day, I feel like I'm not living my life properly. It's not that it's got nothing to do with ambition. It's just because I love doing it, and it's got nothing to do with anything else. So it's quite strange, and like trying to find out where that division is between doing something for ambition and something for fun. So it's quite an odd headspace.
Well, I think you're in a you're quite fortunate in that you don't see it so much as work, but you do enjoy it. I mean, I think if you had to do the same amount of playing and it was work for you, and it was something that you had to really do, you wouldn't find so much enjoyment in it. But because you do enjoy it, it's like, it's all good. You don't necessarily have to have a hobby outside of your, I mean, for me, I personally think it is good, and it helps to bring the passion back to your main thing. As I was explaining to my daughter the other day, because her and a friend of hers, they're writing a play together via, they have Zoom calls every day. So, well, not every day, every day or so. And they're going through and creating a little play and a little something creative to kind of, pass the time. And then, they'll come out of the other end of this with something in their hands, something that they've created. And how I explained to her, because she didn't want to go for a walk in the park. And we, kids need to get out as well. And they need to, they've got a certain amount of energy that they have to expel every day. And I explained this to her. If you were, kind of on the importance of hobbies, if you were whatever it is, and this is the only thing that you do, You know, say you're a songwriter, and the only thing that you do is you sit at home and you write music. Your pool of inspiration is kind of going to run dry very quickly if you don't have any external influences that feeds your inspiration and feeds your creativity. Like I said to her, if you, for instance, if you want to write a song about going to the park, but you've never been to the park, you can only imagine, and you know your song is going to be pretty. You know, it can be great. It can be beautiful, but say that you actually do then go to the park, and on the way to the park, you saw a beautiful bird and a beautiful tree, and it's something that you wouldn't have imagined. Or you run into a friend and you have a conversation, or you see a cute dog, somebody's dog, or something. You know, all these other things that were unexpected that then enriches the story, rather than just sitting home and imagining what a walk to the park is going to be. So that's kind of how I approach having hobbies, because I'd kind of gotten, a couple of years ago, I'd kind of sort of gotten stagnant in the whole, it was work and home and home and work and work and home and home and work. And I didn't have anything outside of that. And I felt that the fire and the passion for being a sound engineer had gotten monotonous, and the fire kind of deadened down a little bit. And as soon as I started incorporating more and more hobbies and more sort of outside interests, I feel that when I do go back to doing my job, I've had a reignition of passion for doing the job. So I mean,
are you saying that are you saying that you've only started these hobbies since the lockdown? Or
no.
do you do
No. This is a couple of years ago.
Well, it sounds like you're well fixed. Like it sounds like you're well prepared for this whole lockdown thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, I still don't have enough hours in the day to do the things that I want to do. Which is, I mean, it's quite fortunate. The only downside to this is obviously the loss of social interaction. And financial remuneration is the main thing, really. But you know, even in that, you know, having to look at what you have in the food cupboard and what you can make from that to still keep it interesting and not just have a plain old meal. Even in that, there's like we have to take the small victories nowadays, don't we?
Yeah. Well, you're an optimist, man. That's great. You know, I've spoken to a couple of people about this imposed unemployment, and in many ways, I was wondering if there'd ever be another time in my life where I could take the time to do anything. You know, where time would slow down, just like it was when you were a kid. And I've been kind of thinking that if you're lucky, you get that when you're old. If you're lucky, unless you die on stage, if you're a musician. So in many ways, this is incredibly lucky. It's all of us, in our middle age or whatever you want to call it, we've actually got the chance to just stop and smell the flowers, you know, smell the roses or whatever the term is, just for once in our lives, just a few weeks, and we're kind of lucky. So, you know, I'm also trying to see the positive side of it.
No,
it's a pain in the ass.
I'm with you 100% on that. I mean, that's the whole world literally stopped, and I think people are more and more sort of taking stock, you know, because there's nothing else to do, and we got to reevaluate the things that are important. I don't know whether I'm sort of interested to see how it's going to come out, and on the other end, whether people are just going to fall back into normality, if you will, or if people are actually going to maybe take a different view and a new approach to, you know, to going forward. So I think that'll be an interesting thing to see.
Well, I mean, as a musician, it's certainly highlighted for me how absolutely appalling revenue is from like record sales and streaming and things like that. And it's, but of course, the argument in the last couple of years has been But you've got the live work. And when you strip that away, it makes you realise how utterly abysmal the situation is for musicians at the moment.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen as we go forward, because if there is any kind of blow to the live scene, I think a few musicians are going to drop off.
I think a fair few, to be honest with you, because maybe it's simply just a question of necessity. Like I said, I've myself have been considering other avenues of work going forward, and maybe if I'm successful in that, then I'll be the X sound guy.
Yeah.
And as much as I love the job, yeah, I'll just put an X in front of that title. I'd probably have to stop this, but I don't know. I mean, I still know people. I still enjoy talking to people.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I was exactly the same. For me, music was just about survival. It was, I've had other jobs, like say I was an infantry soldier, I was then a groundsman. I've done various things, and I wouldn't be in music if it wasn't all about just paying the rent. And it's and if it can't do that for me, then I mean, it would be a shame, but I would do something else.
Yeah.
I know it. I almost wouldn't mind it in a way, because right at the moment in this lockdown, I mean, everyone's just basically saying how awful it is. This is terrible. This is awful. And I don't want to feel like that, to be honest.
No.
I'd rather just remove myself from the situation and just go and get a job doing something else. But it's a little bit early for that yet. It's like, you'd be pretty gutted, wouldn't you, if you sold all your guitars and then bought a van. Yeah. And in 3 weeks from now, it'll be like, the diary starts filling. Oh, I'm sorry, mate, I can't do it. I've sold all my stuff. I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely don't ever sell all your guitars. That's because, as you said, it's also your hobby. It's also your passion and something that you care about. So don't remove that from your life ever.
No, I could get rid of a couple, maybe.
Maybe not. Plus, who's going to have the money to buy them now, Nigel?
Well, yeah, but there is that. Oh, but there's always rich collectors out there.
Oh, there is. There's still people there that are doing quite well.
Yes.
And it's how have you had any, you don't have to name names, I'm not going to name names either, but have you had any trouble with companies or venues saying that they're not going to pay you for the work that's done until this is over, or until their insurance is in, or something like that?
I haven't had one conversation about that. There's a couple of venues that I was quite surprised I hadn't been paid by, but I haven't bothered chasing them.
You're right.
To be honest, I hadn't even thought about it until you just mentioned it. So, yeah.
It's rather frustrating. There is one venue that's basically said to us, "Sorry, we're not going to pay you because you're not that important." In a nutshell, which I find offensive, really, because me personally, I'm replaceable, but the job that I do in a live music venue, I don't think that job is replaceable, because a manager can turn up or don't turn up, and the venue will run fine. Any one of the staff can not turn up, and the venue will run fine. Even if we get pushed to that extreme and say you've got a quintet on stage and the pianist is late, the band can still go on, the band can still play and perform. But when the sound engineer isn't there and nobody else knows how to do it, then there's not going to be any music. So
look, there's a very easy solution. You could mix business and pleasure. Turn up at their offices when this is all over with your bow and arrow.
Yeah, just
see what they say about it then.
Yeah. See how they deal with that.
Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit. You said 1986 you joined the army. What were you, 16 then? 17?
I was 16. Yeah.
My Lord. And you joined the army. Did you say infantry?
I did, yeah.
Right,
Yeah, that's
right.
what I did.
What was the thought behind that?
Well, again, it
was sorry, give me just 1 second. Savannah, my liefie, papa is bezig. Asseblief. Ek weet hy's nie aan nie. Sorry, I just had a little intruder here. Yeah, do continue. Right.
No, it's fine. It was just survival. I messed up at school quite badly, and I ended up kind of getting asked not to come in anymore.
Right.
And yeah, my brother had joined the Royal Marines just a year before, and everything just seemed to be so supercharged for him, and he'd come back and be all windswept and interesting, and there was me, working as a temporary dry cleaner in Tolworth. And I just thought, man, anything is better than this. In fact, I'll tell you what really made up my mind, and that was there was a woman used to work there, Barbara, her name was, and she used to have a cigarette every day, and there were two shelves, and her ashtray was on the bottom shelf, and she wouldn't really smoke it much, but she'd just take a drag, stick it in the ashtray. But on the bottom of the top shelf, where all the smoke was heading up, it was just dripping in this black tar, where she'd been doing this for 30 years. And I looked at it and I just thought, shit, man, I've got to get out of it. Yeah. So it was an option. It was always an option. Yeah. Just join up, Yeah. And before I knew it, it just happened really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. And before I knew it, I was gone. Yeah. And I was training up in Newcastle, meeting some people I couldn't really understand. Geordies and Scots, and people from Barnsley, and all sorts of stuff. And it was suddenly life was just full of all sorts of things to think about.
Kind of like the world opened up a little bit.
Kind of. I mean, it was a very closed down feeling, a feeling that you were trapped whilst you were there. But at least I wasn't bored.
Okay, yeah, I bet. And also with the, you've got a routine, and everything is kind of sort of laid out for you. There's a lot of following, and I think it. I've heard from plenty of people that it helps, to bring a bit of structure, especially like if you say you wanted to get out, you didn't see any future in working in the laundromat, which I don't blame you. You wanted to get out, and you wanted to decide what to do with your life. And I don't know if you wanted to stay in the military full time, if that was maybe a thing that or if it was just a segue into life and into something else.
I didn't know. Christ, man, I was 16, and I thought about a career to start with. I actually wanted to be a recovery mechanic. I thought that would be a great job, like the AA. The sort of military AA. and I thought, well, and then when I leave, I can be a mechanic and that sort of thing. There were no spaces, but I was so desperate to go that I joined anything, so I went as cannon fodder.
So you went to Falklands, right?
No, I never went there. No. I'd spent a couple of years in Northern Ireland.
Okay, right. How was that?
Well, it was quite hairy.
I bet.
It was the sort of time where Michael Stone, I don't know, you probably won't remember all this stuff, and the two signallers got dragged out of the cars and killed and all that sort of thing. But it's
this was in Derry, right?
I thought that was in Belfast, actually.
Oh, it might be. Yeah.
I don't remember. But I mean, I don't know. I almost felt that I was sort of like an observer, like I almost wasn't there. There were a lot of people in the army who got very, very behind the loyalist side of things. But I never did. I just thought I just had this ability to just stand back and see it for what it was. And there's a lot of poverty over there, and as soon as poverty comes into it, then people start blaming other people. I don't know. It's a whole messed up situation. But I came away with no real bad feeling towards either side, really, and which and the same can't be said for most of my
100%.
comrades.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I had a friend. It was a strange situation. I grew up. My dad was in the army. Ever since I can sort of. Well, he was when I was little, and he kind of got out, but he remained. Like he was a captain.
Everything's frozen. Tins.
Hello. Am I back?
You're back.
I'm back.
I think you're back. Yeah, you're back.
It had happened when I was smaller. My dad was in the army, and he kind of sort of remained active in a sort of like in a commando sort of position. And he was a captain, so wherever we went in a different town, he would join the local commandos, and a lot of the time he was he was the captain of the squadron there.
Right.
So I sort of, I grew up with the idea of, having to sort of do that, because when I was growing up, it was still obligatory to go do your service.
Right. So you did it. Well,
I didn't, no, because when the new government took over in '94, they'd expelled that.
Right.
So I was 11 in '94. So when I got to finish high school, that was like a memory.
Yeah.
But I'd always kind of thought of maybe going to do that, anyway. And it was like getting some structure and kind of figuring out what to do and finding my place and finding myself, sort of thing. But I'd gone in a different route to do all that. And through the years, I'd sort of kind of gotten opposed to it a little bit. And the story, I had a friend of mine who, fantastic young man, just handsome and tall and exceptionally smart. And he joined up here. He joined the paratroopers here. This must be 12 years ago. He joined up and he went over to Afghanistan. But he never really sort of believed in the army, but it was, his dad was in the army and his grandfather was in the army. It was kind of like a thing, all the men in his family go to the army, and, they either come back or they become war heroes, or, but he didn't himself believe in it so much. And through the training that they did and everything, every time I would see him, he would tell me, like, I can feel myself getting indoctrinated. I can feel myself, I can feel that changing my mind about certain things. I don't know how I feel about this, but he kind of stuck with it, and he stayed there. And he, unfortunately, when he was out in Afghanistan, he'd stepped on an IED, and he'd lost his right leg above the knee, left leg just below the knee. His right arm is gone just below the elbow. And he's lost a few fingers on his left hand. He survived it. Obviously, he's survived it quite well because he was mentally quite strong. I think he's now doing skiing for the Paralympics for the military or something like that. So, luckily, he had the fortitude to get through it.
Sure. I mean,
we fought out.
Sorry.
Because I never changed my mind about how I felt about the war over in Iraq and Afghanistan, and me thinking that maybe the reasons that we were there, or that the army was there, wasn't always legit. And I never changed my standpoint. But I think he needed to sort of like rationalize, and he needed to make what happened to him more acceptable. He got more and more into it, and we kind of fell out because of that. Unfortunately, he'd gotten sort of focused on that, and that became his whole thing. So yeah, it's a.
Of course, well, it would be impossible to expect him not to be like that. Really,
yeah.
It's just and I'm really sorry to hear that, man. It's actually impossible to go through a military career and not experience that kind of thing. You know, it's not everyone makes it home. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Yeah. But I guess, you know, I mean, I guess he doesn't want to be told that it was all for nothing. You know, it's
that's what I'm thinking. You know, that's because the conversations became more and more volatile. Where I just, you know, I kept saying to him, you know, just because you gotten yourself blown up, right? I'm not going to feel sorry for you. You're still my friend in the same way that you always have been. And I'm always going to tell you what I think and what I feel about something, regardless of whether you think now you're justified and you have to justify your actions and whatever. And he became a bit more aggressive towards me, and I was like, okay, well, maybe this isn't going to work out, you know, as a friendship. So, yeah, which is a shame, but I can kind of see how, you know, going through something like that, it will change you. So, yeah, it's.
Man, you know, just around the corner from here, they've actually moved it now, but it was RAF Headley Court, which is where a lot of the guys kind of recuperate, and quite often you'd see them coming downtown. You know, there'd be a guy with one leg pushing a wheelchair with a guy with no legs, and people with no arms and all that sort of thing coming down, and you know, everyone would go very sort of quiet when they walked into the pub. You know, and I always used to just go and buy them all a drink. You know. Yeah. A lot of these guys are so young; they don't really know. They can't really see their you know, like they can't see a bigger picture of their sort of role in the whole thing. Before they know it, their life has changed irreparably forever.
Yeah, forever.
And it's, you know, it's absolutely heartbreaking, really. So I think maybe you can cut these people a bit of slack, you know, give them a bit of time, but.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I don't, you know, I'm talking in a sort of like a global sense. I understand that everybody has their personal reasons for going there and all these things. I don't necessarily hold it against them. You know, for me, it's more about the upper tiers and, you know, not conforming to that. But I don't hold him personally a grudge against him or anything.
No, of course not. I mean,
from his side, he didn't really. But he's kind of cut himself off from not just me, from a lot of my other friends as well.
Sure. Well, I mean, you know, it's hard to know what you're doing at that age. I remember when on my passing out parade, and no, just after we passed out.
Well, I hope you didn't pass out too much.
That's what they call it, passing out. You know? Yeah. Sorry.
No.
And they were reading out. They were calling out that our posts, like where we were going to get posted, like Private Smith, British Army of the Rhine, Germany, you know, and then they went to Private Price, Hollywood. I was like, Hollywood, man, you know, this is great. And I don't know, I heard this voice from behind me saying, "It's not where you think it is, son." Turns out to be Hollywood and County Down in Northern Ireland. And it was me thinking I was going to Beverly Hills, you know.
Brilliant.
But,
mingling with the hoi polloi. Yeah. Brilliant, man. That's great. How long did you serve?
3 years, 263 days.
Right.
9 hours and 3 minutes.
Right.
No, it wasn't
the 4-year mark. You're like, I'm not going career. I'm going that way.
Yeah, well, it's a very long story about how I got out, but it's probably a little bit too.
No, it's all good, man. Personal. We don't have to go into that. Yeah,
but I'm okay. I promise.
Yeah, just got to swallow my handful of pills before I get up in the morning.
The flashbacks aren't too bad.
No, mate. Yeah. Well, one thing, I don't know if you've ever tried this for. Just sort of general mental well-being, taking cold showers. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but I can.
Wim Hof.
Hey, Wim Hof, he's the man.
Wim Hof.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I
know
kind of
about this. Yeah.
started doing this before I found out about him. I listened to Joe Rogan quite a bit, and there was somebody on there talking about, you know, as you get with a sauna and a steam room where you get the heat shock proteins that, you know, that help you recover, you get the same when you go into sort of cryo, where you get the cytokines that help, and especially with sort of, you know, depression and anxiety and things like that. It's an absolute bomb, man. It's like a good
Well,
stuff.
you know what? This is such a weird coincidence because I actually heard about this from a guitarist called Libor Schmodas, who's from the Czech Republic.
Right.
And I was supposed to be going to the Czech Republic this morning for a tour with Libor and him and a friend of his, a fantastic organ player called Jakob Sommer, are into the ice swimming. You know, I actually went on tour there a couple of years ago, like 14 days straight, and Jakob would just, you know, be driving along and he'd see an ice lake and he'd literally stop the car, go and break a hole in it and get in it. And I was like, what the hell, man? And then it turns out that, you know, they're all into this kind of Wim Hof guy and being absolutely indestructible, you know.
Yeah.
So I am aware of it, but I'm a bit too much of a pussy.
I tell you what, because I started about a year ago, and obviously during the summer it's easier, but February was a hard one.
But it was
to have those cold showers every second day, getting in there, and, you know, literally getting an ice cream headache from washing your hair. The feeling of just complete refreshed, renewed vigor, everything it's well worth trying.
I should try, and it's also cheaper.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Doesn't have to heat the water, so you can stand under there as long as you want. You just don't want to fucking stand there for a long time.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do. So you, 1986, 4 years, 1990, you got out of the military, and then you immersed yourself fully. Were you always interested in jazz, or was that kind of, how did you get into playing jazz?
Well, no, I wasn't really interested in it. It's all just been an evolution. So I'd got more heavily into blues, actually. Sort of during the army years somehow, and then I got out, and all my mates were into like Thin Lizzy and things like that. And I moved into a student house in Brighton where there was another great guitarist there, and we used to work out the Thin Lizzy harmonies, and we had a sort of band, and we'd get a gig maybe once a month. And then that all fizzled out in the end, and moved back to Epsom, and then just started getting bands together, and more ambitious kind of funk and fusion stuff. I was really into John McLaughlin, Mahavishnu Orchestra kind of stuff, and then there was just this sort of crashing realization one day that I couldn't play like John McLaughlin, and I don't know. I was just going through through the jazz records when you used to have jazz record shops. You know, move on to the next section. McLaughlin, Montgomery. Oh, who's this Wes Montgomery guy? You know, and I just thought, oh, what the hell? I'll just buy this record, and I was just totally knocked out. It was like all those worries about getting technically. It's just almost out of this world, you know, like reaching that just incredible level they just didn't exist anymore, because there was now melody, and I didn't actually realize that I was probably choosing the harder road, but to
do the solos.
Yeah, you know, just being able to have such a relationship with your instrument that you can. What I aspire to now is to play exactly like those early records that I heard, just having pure melody, and being able to improvise, you know, properly, and relate to people. And I guess those are my sort of formative experiences of jazz through Wes Montgomery and the album Moving Wes. I think it was called Moving Ways, or was it Moving Along? I was getting confused between those two. But yeah, and I kind of I got sick of the politics of being in bands, like the I don't know, like there's like the different relationship, the things that make bands fall apart, and I don't know, the headache of it all. And I thought, man, what if I could just be like a freelancer? What if I could just get really good at jazz, and then I could go out and play with anyone, and I wouldn't have to worry about any of these people. And if you don't get on with the bass player or the sax player or whatever, there's no strings attached. You can just move on, and that's it. And yeah, I've quickly discovered that I had actually already reached a level where I could actually go and work and get paid for it. And to be honest, it's no different now. That may have been 25 years ago, but I still feel like I'm doing the same now.
Yeah. Just
freelancing and just playing as good as I can, and obviously having a great time with 99.999% of people that I spend my time with.
Yeah.
But still, no strings attached.
That's great, man. Yeah, no pun intended. All the strings are still attached at the end of the show. Hopefully, unless you smash the guitar. Yeah, I gotta say, man, that that thing you do with Jim Mullen and Mick Hutton it's probably one of my favorite things. It's
Armageddon.
Brilliant.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we need to record that, and we need to get some more shows. But I guess firstly, we need to get this damn lockdown over.
That's correct.
Yeah, I can't wait. Can't wait to get back out there and doing it.
Yeah, I think, but you I saw the promo that you did for your lessons is very funny. Yeah, it was a fly. But I do think personally that your reputation is well enough established, and you have the respect of your peers and plenty of other people out there, that would die to learn from you. And I think probably myself included. I don't think I
so.
the discipline that you have in terms of my practice regime. I haven't really practiced my guitar in a little while, but as I said, I'm kind of trying other things. But you should definitely pursue that and just put it out there, man. I honestly.
I've done it. I mean, I've been sitting here for the last 3 weeks recording just videos of what I did to get to the point that I am now, or at least I mean, it's not a complete solution, but it's just a bunch of exercises that I kind of got together, and it's all your progress is directly related to the amount of time you spend with the instrument. There's just no way around that. I don't think. I mean, maybe there is.
No.
There's all sorts of conversations. There's all sorts of conversations people have about like meditation and imagining the process. But I think ultimately, I've always been about throwing loads of shit against the wall and just see what sticks. And there's something about that you can't take away. I think to date I've put in about 60,000 hours of playing. So, and it's got to have some kind of effect,
Yeah, 100%, man. And it's the hands-on experience as well, and building the muscle memory. I think there's,
it's part of it.
You can't envision building muscle memory. You can play a scale 100 million times in your head, but if you don't have the confidence to execute that, then that time might have been wasted.
Yeah. Well, it's not all about scales. But
no, 100%. But it's just an example. Sure. You can go over all the melodies and all the chords. You can go through your arpeggios and the modes and everything. It's obviously it's good to reinforce that mentally when you're away from your instrument. You try and make sure that you know exactly what goes where, and so that you can recall that without any kind of effort when you're playing, because obviously you don't want to be thinking when you're playing too much. You got to think, but you don't want to be thinking too much so your head gets in the way.
That's true. It's true.
So you've recorded these things, you said, and have you released them yet, or are you going to release them?
No. I'm going to start uploading them to like a private YouTube channel today, and then get them out on to put the links out on Patreon and Patreon, or however you pronounce it, and I'll try and get the whole site up and running within the week and see what happens. Hopefully there'll be a good amount of take up on that. Otherwise, it looks like it's down to the job centre.
If they let you in, man.
Which would be a shame.
Oh man,
well, that's true.
I was slightly concerned because we had quite fortunately started the application for universal credit before this whole thing started. So I went in for my final interview, sort of the week before we went into full lockdown. It was a Monday morning, and in that time, 2 of the workers there was coughing and with fever, and they had to be sent home and everything. I was like, shit, I'm probably going to get it. So yeah, that was slightly concerning. So yeah, it's whether now I think they do all these interviews and things remotely now, which is probably a good thing. But,
well, Christ, man, you're worried. My wife, she works as a nurse, so it's.
Yeah, that must
so
be
disconcerting. I reckon we both had it anyway.
I think, to be honest with you, I think we have had it in a form as well. Oh, another thing that I was going to mention about the cold showers is the immune system boost that you get from it. Hello?
Hello, yeah.
Right.
Just back.
I'm back. I just got a notification. Your internet connection is slow. So yeah. No, the boost to your immune system is absolutely fantastic, because in January, both my wife and daughter got bronchitis. And I don't know whether it was bronchitis or now thinking back on it, it might have been this sort of thing. Anyway, and I started feeling a little bit under the weather, and I started coughing. I was like, nah, fuck it. And I went and I jumped in the cold shower, and the next morning I was right as rain, and it didn't even touch me after that. I just, I washed it all away. So, that's another positive thing to be said about cold showers, as hard as it is.
Yeah. I'm going to have to pluck up the courage.
Well, you can start slowly, have your hot shower and then just turn it cold at the end.
That's what I've been doing. That's exactly what I've been doing.
And just start extending the time a little bit until you get in the shower and it's cold water straight away.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you been checking out this Wim Hof stuff then?
Well, not massively. It was just Libor told me about him, and I've just had a little look. And it would be nice to be wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, it would also be nice to grow a really good beard.
Well, you've got the time now, Nigel.
I don't know if I've got the testosterone though.
Oh man, it looks well formed to me. It's all even,
You can't say that to me. Christ, look at you, like a Viking.
Yeah. Well, I threw my razor away a long time ago. I'm like, this is not.
You'd never know it.
It's not for me. I think I've still got like a straight blade razor somewhere. But yeah,
rusty.
It's probably rusty right now, to be honest with you. I didn't spend too much money on it, so I don't know whether it's a cut throat razor that'll probably cut my throat next time I use it, because it's blunt and rusted. And then we've got other things to worry about.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't start with that. If I were you, I'd start with a garden shears or a strimmer, maybe.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know. Our strimmer is incapable of cutting the hedge in front of our house, so I don't know if I might get stuck in my beard. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah, man. I'm gonna leave you with that. Thank you so much for taking the time and talking to me. I will link in the description to your Patreon and all the social media and stuff that you're happy to share. And then we'll get some more people.
Of course, that's great. What is
people on there for you to learn from Nigel the Jazz? It should be Nigel the Jazz King.
Well, Listen, man, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for asking me to do this. It's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, man. Lovely. You have yourself a good time, and we'll see each other on the other end.
Absolutely. All right, look after yourself.
See you later, bro.
Okay.
Hey.
Cheers.
Right. Well, there we have it. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I have, and I'll be sharing Nigel's social media. You can catch up with him there. Also, I'll share a link to his Patreon page and his lessons, his online lessons, so you can learn from the master. I urge you to go and check out his playing and and support the lessons that he gives, as guaranteed you will learn a lot. I'll also be sharing my social media so you can see what I get up to during this quarantine and this lockdown. I also have a Patreon page, so if you want to support me, support the podcast, go to patreon.com/HeySoundGuy. You can support me there. Thank you very much. As always, like, share, subscribe, get the word out there. Keep it sound.